It's the Football Diary podcast. It's International Week, but that just means the focus switches to England instead, who have been relegated from their Nations League group after a dismal 1-0 defeat at the San Siro to Italy. I don't think dismal's even the word. I think that's probably an understatement. Myles, what did you make of it, mate? It was a bit of a tired, lethargic, unexciting performance all round, really, wasn't it?
I feel like we've seen that way too many times, sadly, as well. And this Nations League group has been such a disappointment in a tournament that the first Nations League, England obviously looked really impressive. They topped their group. It looked fantastic.
Yeah.
And it was a momentum builder. And this one's just been the exact opposite. It's killed any feel-good factor that was around the England squad off the back of the Euros and the World Cup. And going into Qatar now, you do kind of worry, not just for Southgate, but for just the football we might be able to enjoy.
Yeah, it's a strange one because, the Nations League has had a rough year for its reputation, hasn't it? It's the summer we had all those games on the back of a season that was absolutely exhausting. The players weren't up for it mentally. I think there's a feeling that is still the case now, even though there's a World Cup on the horizon. I didn't get the sense of any kind of urgency from many of England's players, did you?
Well, I don't know how you can because they're all shattered. Yeah. Like you say, the fixture calendar's been so congested for the last 2 years that having these competitive games in the middle sounds like a great idea. And for some nations, it really is. But for England, it just has proved not to be. And they're not the only ones. A lot of big sides are really losing out. Germany lost to Hungary. France have only won 1 in the last 6. So I just feel like it came at the wrong time for England and they didn't really utilise the opportunity that they had really to prepare for the World Cup in a more constructive way.
It's a strange setup that he started with as well because he went for the 3 at the back. But not only that, but a back 3 of Kyle Walker, Eric Dyer and Harry Maguire, who he persisted with. You played Bukayo Saka out on the left as a left wing back, which he's played before, to be fair. Bellingham got a start, which was great to see. But talk me through your thoughts when you saw that starting lineup. What did you make of it?
It's the same old problem where we have this conservative approach that really doesn't suit anyone in the squad. No. The only time most of those players have played in those positions is for England. And although I like that Southgate has got a philosophy that he tries to stick with, and I think that is one way of success in international football, it doesn't accommodate the strengths of this current squad in any way, shape or form. And he needs to show some adaptability. You need to look at this current England squad and think, how do we get the best out of them? Not what worked for us in 2018. Because it's a different squad and players are in a really different position in their careers now as well. You've got players who are completely out of form in the starting 11, not just the squad, but starting games. You've got players playing in positions that they've not played in for at least 12 months. And it's the backwards way of approaching the last 2 games before the World Cup, and it was just really poor preparation.
You've got Saka, who... When you talk about the fact they're out of form as well, and he's still persistent, and we've said before, he's such a loyal manager, but there's a limit to loyalty when you've got so much on the line, isn't there?
And then the players that you have got in form, he's not using in the correct way, like Saka. Saka is undoubtedly probably the best English player in the Premier League on form right now, and he's playing him as a left wing-back when he's playing a right winger for Arsenal. It's just... There's no logic to that. I understand we're not exactly blessed in our left-back department right now, but it was just a bizarre thing to try. And Southgate's excuse was it was an attempt to get a more attacking player on. I'd actually argue the opposite, that it's actually a way of nullifying an attacking player and making him defensive. Yeah. It's just useless. You look at that system now, and you've got Harry Maguire playing in the back 3 where he doesn't play in a back 3 normally. He plays in a back 4 for Man United. And even then, he doesn't play. So you're throwing him into that system.
Yeah.
You've got Kyle Walker playing as a centre-back. I love Kyle Walker. His recovery pace is really vital and has been for England. But he's not one of our best centre-backs. That's not his position. No. You've got Saka out of position. You kind of nullifying Bellingham because you don't give him that freedom to go forward. It was just bizarre. And you use this opportunity against 2 really good sides in Italy and Germany to prepare yourselves for what's to come. And actually, you feel like England have gone backwards from it.
Interesting comment. Backwards, you think? I know they've been static for, 5 games in a row they've failed to win. But since the Euros final, Italy have been in the same boat, to be fair. But England in particular, toothless, don't they? They've scored, 1 goal from open play or in the last 12 months or something stupid like that. It's a really insane statistic, but it's matched only by San Marino, I think, in terms of how bad it is. So there's nothing going forward. It's really shaky at the back. The middle of the
Yeah.
park looks deserted. There's no players that
Yeah.
are standing out at international level.
No.
So what is going right for Southgate? What does he take from this game and go, do you know what, that experiment actually worked? I'm pleased with what I've seen there.
I don't think you can. I think if you're waiting to the 75th minute for a shot on target as a side that goes into the
Yeah.
World Cup as one of the favourites, that's just not good enough. I don't think Southgate learned anything from this. The only things you might be able to say were Nick Pope, other than he was unfortunate for the goal, he had a decent performance. Bellingham was probably the best outfield player, but we knew that was going to happen. Other than that, I don't think he learned anything. And I'm not surprised because he didn't try anything.
No.
I think if you look at this England squad right now, and I said to you, who are the best players on form in this squad right now? Who's performing the best for their club right now? You'd probably say Saka, Bellingham. You could maybe get Kane in there. He's had a decent start to the season.
Yeah.
And Tomori at AC Milan.
Yeah.
And you don't play Tomori. You don't give Bellingham any freedom. You play Saka in the wrong position, and you make Kane do everything himself. It was useless. You're coming against the Italians, who Tomori has come up against every single week, and you don't try him. You play a back five of players who really should they even start for England? Could you argue that any of the back five should start the first game at the World Cup?
Oh, no.
I would say one. I
Absolutely
would say
not.
Reece James. That's it.
Reece James, definitely. And I think in terms of the
No one
right
else.
backs we've got, we've heard tonight, obviously, he's taken Trent Alexander-Arnold out of the squad for the Germany game, which I think is the right move because he is out of form. But Reece
Yeah.
James is the outstanding right back for England now. At left back, you were saying earlier, that's a problem area as well because he's put Saka
Yeah.
there for this particular game. But
Yeah.
Chilwell's not playing minutes, you know. Luke Shaw's
Gotta be
not
him,
playing
though.
minutes. It's got to be probably
Mm.
Chilwell, hasn't it? But Shaw was
Yeah.
better for England going forward when he came on. The back
Mm.
four made a difference, I think, compared to a back three. I think a flat back four
Mm.
suits England better in terms of an attacking sense. And they were the
Yeah.
only kind of chances I saw creative was when we switched to that sort of system. Walker was sacrificed to make that happen. It seemed to
Mm.
kind of unlock Foden a little bit as well. Foden's such a
Yeah.
great player. Sterling's such a
Yeah.
great player. These are all kind of
Yeah.
attacking mainstays for any team in the world, yet they're not
Mhm.
getting any creative service. Why the hell is
Yeah.
that? What has he got to do? And what do you want to see against Germany to make that potential be unlocked?
I think what he's got to do is just trust them a little bit more. I don't think he trusts the midfield. And to be honest, we've probably got one really exciting young prospect who looks like he could already be, and if not, he definitely will be world class in Jude Bellingham.
Yeah.
We have Declan Rice, who I actually think an incredible midfielder. Short of that, our options in central midfield are very weak. So I think he feels like he has to play two in the middle, which means playing three at the back. And it's so frustrating. If Phillips was fit, maybe he would have played that double pivot in front of a four,
Yeah.
but I still doubt that he would be brave enough to do that. But that's what you have to do. You have to breathe some creativity into that midfield. If you're not creating clear-cut chances until the 75th minute in a game, then it tells you that something in an attacking sense has to change. Now, I look at the squad of players that we have. What system would best suit everyone there? And it's a 4-3-3.
Yeah.
I don't think anyone disputes that. If you can play Bellingham in midfield with Rice behind him and then another more creative player alongside him, for me, probably Mason Mount, even though he's
Yeah.
not really been at the height that he has been previously, that gives Bellingham the freedom to kind of dictate the play a little bit more. He's really good at that for Dortmund. If you play a back four, you can get Fikayo Tomori in there, you can get John Stones in there too. Actually, really good centre backs who are performing well for their club. You've got players that suit that system, and it allows you to get someone like Foden the ball a lot more often than relying on a back five to sit back and soak up pressure. It's just, you've got to be brave. And people have said that about Southgate for a really long time.
Okay.
You know me, I love Gareth Southgate. I really try and support him. It's hard at the moment because I don't want to waste the talent that England have right now in this next World Cup because some players won't make the following one.
I was going to say to you,
It's
actually, you've led me on
hard.
nicely. Southgate, he's had a
Yeah,
lot of criticism, I think, on the back of this result. Not just this result, but
yeah.
the sequence of results since the Euros final.
Mhm.
And I think deservedly so in some ways. He's been far
Yeah.
too pragmatic. I think every fan can say that. There's not been any changes necessarily. Far too many players have been given far too much opportunity to try and be better, and they've not
Yeah.
proved to be successful at all. And I think he just needs to
Mhm.
be a lot more ruthless in his selection with them. Not only that, but he
Yeah.
had, like you say, an opportunity against Italy. to experiment to an extent. Nations League's been and gone. There's no point playing for anything now other than just pride and a system. And I think against Germany, what will he do? I mean, what do you expect to see, and what do you think you'll actually see in this Germany game?
Nothing much. That's the sad thing. They've already said that Tamori and Trent aren't in the squad,
Yeah.
and it looks like it's going to be John Stones and Maguire starting together at the back. So we might actually try a back four, but do we need to see that partnership again? It's that I wanted to see Trent playing in midfield because I don't think England are blessed with centre midfielders. Yeah. We are very blessed with right backs, and Trent is probably in the worst form of all four of the right backs we would consider. This was a really good opportunity to try something new. Put him in that midfield.
Yeah.
See if he could be creative from a different position. You've done it with other players. You've done it with Kyle Walker and moved him out of position. So if you're that determined to shoehorn your players in based on their attributes, why are you not trying it with someone who a lot of people would say is one of the most talented outlets that England have right now?
Yeah, true.
It's a fine balance because here I am criticising Southgate for playing players in systems that they've never played before and then saying, well, why didn't you try Trent like that? I want to see him to do something. I don't really care what it is, not what we've already seen him do and not really work out in many ways. I look at that squad that we've got now and I think, well, at least two of them won't make the World Cup because it's a 28-man squad. And I think you could argue that 5 or 6 of them shouldn't make it.
On form,
I feel like he's missing some really key players. I don't know. I feel a bit underwhelmed. I don't know what to expect from the Germany game. I think it will just be the same old, to be totally honest.
I hope it's not because I think he's running out of credit. He's got a lot of credit in the bank, I think, for the way England have performed in the last 2 tournaments. And deservedly so. I think we've never seen this kind of level of sustained success at an international tournament for 2 tournaments in a row. So I do hope he's given the time to turn it around. And I think you have got to kind of trust that the players' mentality will switch a little bit when they get to a major tournament because it's been such a weird international year, hasn't it? Since the Euros had finished, it's been just the Nations League and friendlies and not much else. And it feels like the focus of the players hasn't been there. And again, it's astounding to think that considering there's a World Cup on the horizon. But I do think once they're there, they will perform differently. But I just want to see some experimentation from him now. Like you say, Tamori would have been perfect to play. I'd love to see Abraham. I'd love to see Tony, who I think might get a chance against Germany.
I think he'll play tonight.
I hope so. I really do. Because like you say, you want to come away from the match feeling like you've learned something. And at the minute, we haven't learned anything about any England players for a good 12 months. And that's kind of scary, really, because he's still looking at Jordan Henderson as an option, and if he's ready, I think he'll go to the tournament as well, which is not right. He's not played enough minutes, but he's far too loyal to a few players. Do you think his job's in danger? Do you think there's any chance that the FA will sack Southgate if he doesn't perform to standard at the World Cup?
Oh, at the World Cup, definitely. He won't go before the World Cup. I'm quite confident that almost no matter what the result is, the World Cup will be Southgate's last appearances with England. I think he will go. Whether that's on the back of some success, which I doubt, to be honest, or whether it's because we've underwhelmed. I'm trying to work out whether our expectations of England are realistic. Because actually, when Southgate came in 2018, we were a mess. And no one expected us to get as far as we did. You can argue that maybe we should have gotten to the final in the Euros because it was a home tournament. But still, would we really have expected that? 4 years before, you never were expected to get to the final of the Euros.
No.
So are we now just kind of seeing England's actual level? Are they as good as Germany and Italy? Bear in mind, Italy, people are really quick to write off because they haven't qualified for the World Cup. They are the European champions, and actually they missed out on the World Cup based on essentially 2 penalties, which is fine margins. And it looks like they're going to top this Nations League group as well. So
I think the only consolation I can take from it, I think you touched on it earlier, the only consolation I can take from it is the amount of international teams that are also kind of struggling in this 12 months that's been such a weird 12 months for international teams. So the likes of France, they're one of the hot favourites for the tournament. They don't look anywhere near form. England don't look near form. Germany have been struggling. I think the Netherlands are the only team that look like they're on some kind of form. So the European teams especially are all out of sorts. The South American teams are not particularly flying. I mean, Brazil, for all their talent, aren't doing amazing. So, and then Iran beat Uruguay the other day. I don't know if you saw that result. Every single team in their group lost apart from Iran. So it's a strange, unpredictable kind of turn of events in the next few games. And I think the World Cup's going to be fascinating to watch. But I think as an England fan, I'm a little bit nervous. I don't know about you.
I do feel nervous, and I feel nervous for a couple of reasons. I feel like we haven't got that momentum that it would have been nice to carry into the
Yeah,
tournament. Now, that might mean nothing. We've seen that before with England. So I don't want to put too much into that. I'm nervous about the selection. I, looking at his squad now and trying to work out who the 26 players he will take, I sat and tried to do it earlier. Who would I take if I was taking 26 players? I know that Southgate will take some that are not on my list.
yeah,
He will take Maguire. I don't see how you can. He probably will take Shaw unless he gets back into the United team, which I can't see happening. I don't see how you can. You mentioned Jordan Henderson. That might be the same old, same old. It's not as inspiring as you want it to be.
no,
There are players that are missing from this squad that I think it's mental. You had to have Jadon Sancho in there. He
yeah.
brings you so much more. He is creative. I still think Tyrone Mings is in the top four centre backs that we have right now. I would have probably tried Ben White
I
out.
think so. Yeah, I think the way Arsenal have been playing, yeah, it'd be stupid not to. James Maddison's
And I
even had
also,
a good season so far, despite Leicester's troubles. He's been the creative force for them. There's been a few midfielders where I'm thinking that could be a spark for the forwards, because I think the big miss for England has been linking play to the forwards, because the forwards have tried their
yeah,
best to get in right positions and to create something. There's just nothing going on around them. Just missing something in midfield.
the only thing with Madison is where does he play for England?
Yeah,
Because they don't play someone behind the striker.
no.
So I just don't know where Madison fits into an England system. The other one for me, and I know you'll say it's just my Villa bias, but so Ollie Watkins has to make the World Cup squad, in my opinion. Just because, as much as I like Ivan Toney, does Tony bring you much different to Kane?
I think that's the
They're
point, though.
both very.
I think he wants to
I,
be a direct backup to Kane, and I think he wants that
that's
to
Abraham.
probably, yeah,
Has to
yeah.
be. I think for me, I don't want three of the same striker.
No,
Now,
I
all
don't
right,
either.
Abraham is better at holding the ball up and he can go out wide, but realistically, you want him in the box just like you want
Mm,
Kane. And that's what Tony will do as well. I also want to have someone to bring on where if you 1-0 up, they will just run tirelessly. They'll occupy defenders, they'll press high, they'll hold the ball up. That's Watkins, and he's done well for England and Southgate previously.
yeah,
So him, Sancho, Mings, and White have to, in my opinion, make the World Cup squad, and they're not in this squad. So that means automatically you've now got 6 players that are in this current squad that I wouldn't take to the World
yeah,
Cup.
I agree.
And I also wonder if there's a couple that will surprise us. I wonder if Trent will even go.
I don't think so. I think he's had one England appearance in 12 months. And I
Yeah.
think we've talked about why Southgate doesn't rate him, first of all.
Hmm.
I just don't think he does. I don't think he's his kind of player. I think he's very,
Yeah.
very loyal again to the likes of Kyle
Hmm.
Walker as a right back. Kieran
Yeah.
Trippier is probably ahead of him as well in the pecking order.
Yeah, it must be. I
Reece James is definitely number one now because his form for club has
think.
been as good, and country when he's played really well. I think that's probably one of the only sort of shining lights about his decision making Southgate lately is that Reece James has been pretty good. Every other right back, I think Trent's bottom of the pecking order, definitely.
I feel like it's harsh because actually he's been in really good form for Newcastle and he's so good from set pieces that it's a great weapon to
Yeah.
have. I wouldn't take Trippier. I wouldn't be surprised if he starts our first game of the World Cup.
Isn't that mad? Do you know what? You're not alone. I think quite a few fans would say the same because, again, he's a great player, but I don't think he's
Hmm.
anything more than average now. I don't think he's got maybe a year or
He
two
does a
of
job.
high level football left in him because, yeah, he does a job, yeah, but he's not the future. And I think we need to look at
Yeah,
that from this World Cup onwards that we play somebody who's going to be there for the
yeah.
next 5 years at least. And that's Reece James, isn't it?
And you've got that experience in Kyle
Yeah.
Walker. I don't think you can take both. And for me, I'd always take Walker over Trippier. I think I still think Walker's probably the best right back in world football. Him and Reece James, to me, that is the perfect combination.
Yeah.
I would have taken Trent because I think his ability means that he could be more versatile and we could see him in other areas. He'll probably look at Trippier like that and
Mm.
think, well, I can play Trippier left back if I need to and take him. But if we get to the World Cup and we're still playing Saka as a left back
No.
and playing Kyle Walker as a centre back and playing Maguire in part of the back three, then I haven't got much hope for it. It's sad. I didn't have much hope going into the last 2 tournaments, and we overperformed. That's the only thing I can hold on to. But I'm wearing my 2018 shirt today to remind me of better times. But I can't see it that being replicated this summer, sadly,
I think
or winter. I
we've
should
talked a
say.
lot about defenders, haven't we, for selection
Mhm.
headaches, but Midfield is a problem area, I think. Calvin Phillips, we
Yeah.
don't know whether he's going to be fit for the tournament at all. He's
Yeah.
not played many minutes at all lately. So, who is kind of the shoe-ins for his World Cup squad? Who do you think is the definites, and who do you think has got potential? And again, who do you think might miss out? Who are you thinking, do you know what, he could provide something?
It's really hard because actually, in central areas of midfield, when you say who might miss out that could provide something, no one, because there isn't enough depth there.
Yeah.
That's one area that we seem to really struggle in. I looked at doing a 26-man squad earlier, and for midfielders, I came up with Bellingham, Rice, Mason Mount,
Ward-Prowse? Yeah.
Ward-Prowse is the next one, and then Calvin Phillips if he's fit.
Mm.
Now, the only other things you've got are if you take Eric Dyer, he can play in midfield or as the holding midfielder
Yeah.
if Rice was suspended or injured. So that helps. Could you potentially drop Foden into the midfield to bring a bit of creativity in, or Grealish,
Grealish,
maybe,
maybe.
but I wouldn't want to
No.
necessarily. Grealish did come through as a number 8 for Villa for quite a while, so he could potentially play there, but I wouldn't want to. So there isn't much depth. That's why he kind of has to keep relying on Jordan Henderson.
Yeah.
That's why I would have wanted him to try one of the right backs there. Really, the midfield should pick itself for the first game. It should be Rice and Bellingham. I would play Mount in midfield with them.
I agree.
And not even because
No,
I'm
I
inspired
agree.
by Mount right now, but he's the most capable.
I think
I've
with
got Delhi on the back of this shirt, but I think he's quite a way off the squad these days.
I think with midfield, I think most of the best teams for modern football have like a player in midfield with brains about the game and can dictate tempo. I think United have seen the difference that Christian Eriksen makes to their play with that kind of intelligence.
Massively.
Really, I think that's Jude Bellingham. I think he's got to be a starter in any World Cup starting 11 for every game. I think he's that kind of brains, that kind of link up that England needs. Rice is
It's a
the
lot of
engine.
pressure for a young man, though.
It is, but he's ready for it. And I think his performances
I
in
think
the
so
Champions
too.
League as well on the biggest stage have been wicked.
Yeah, he's a big game player
Massively.
too, which is really encouraging.
So no kind of fears about his temperament or nerves or anything like that. The only thing you would fear with him is burnout, I guess. But we're having a World Cup in the middle of the season, so that shouldn't be an issue.
Yeah.
It seems like ready and set up for England to do well. And I think the biggest frustrations that we must all feel as England fans is that there's no better time. This is not a golden generation. I hate to paint them with that kind of name, but it's a really, really good generation of footballers. And on paper, we should be as good as any squad in the World Cup. And I know English arrogance can come across at tournaments quite often, but I genuinely believe we're a fantastic team of young players and we need to use the players wisely with no fear. They shouldn't have any fear. We won all these youth tournaments with the players that are coming through now with no fear. Just go for it. Southgate should just unleash them onto the world.
I think it is a great team of young players. I would stop short of fantastic. I just think we've got we've got world-class players in very specific areas.
True.
But I don't think our goalkeeper, centre-backs, left-back and midfield is anywhere near the standard of the majority of the favourites. Jordan Pickford's been brilliant for England. He'll probably be the number 1, but he's not a world-class goalkeeper. We can't even work out who's going to play left back because we just haven't got one. It will probably be Chilwell. The centre-backs that Southgate relies on are not even our best centre-backs, let alone the best in world football. And the midfield picks itself, but purely because there are 0 other options. It's funny, I think everyone will probably say the same 3 goalkeepers would go, but there is competition for it.
Yeah.
You could say, maybe Henderson could go, or maybe you could call up Sam Johnstone if he gets a run in the team. But realistically, we'd probably pick the same 3.
Definitely.
The midfield, everyone probably picks the same, but that's because there is no one else. And that could be a real issue for England. I'm really worried about that.
Yeah. I think if he's going to take any wild card players, I think the only wild card I would consider, I don't know, you probably don't consider it a wild card, is, like you say, Ollie Watkins. I don't think he's in Southgate's thoughts, but I think he could be a player that makes a difference off the bench. And I think that's what Southgate will end up doing. I think he'll find out that his starting 11, whoever it might be, isn't creative enough or isn't doing enough or isn't doing anything different to what we normally do. So Watkins could be that kind of player. I think he's a little bit of a game changer. I don't want to put too much pressure on his shoulders, but I agree. Him instead of Tony makes more sense up front because we've got so many attacking players to surround Kane that we need somebody to be different to Kane because Kane can struggle sometimes against certain teams. Any team with like a low block we struggle with because we're very good creatively. So if they just shut shut the back door and say you're not going anywhere. We struggle to play around them at the minute, and that's really
Yeah.
frustrating to watch. So Watkins could provide a little bit of difference in that respect, don't you think?
Yeah, to be honest, when I looked at it earlier, the changes I would make to the current squad to the World Cup were, like I said, I think I've had about 6. So you've got to strip 2 players out. For me, you don't need 4 right backs, so I wouldn't take Trippier.
No.
I feel bad for Trippier, but I probably wouldn't take him. It's an argument whether you'd take Trent or not. I think you can. I think you can afford him in a 26-man squad. If it was 23, he wouldn't be going. He definitely wouldn't be going.
Yeah.
I would swap Watkins for Tony. I'd swap Sancho for Bowen.
Yeah, definitely.
Then Phillips and Ward-Prowse probably get in there as well.
Does Rashford get back in?
No, I don't think he will.
No.
I think it's too late. I think the problem is there's too many left wingers for him to get there. You've got Foden, you've got Grealish, you've got Saka. Sterling really is a left winger, but he'll probably play on the right. Whereas Sancho, he could easily start for England on the right-hand side. He won't, but he could. He's that good. So I don't think Rashford will get back in. Who else did I look at that I thought would be a decent addition? Tyreek Mitchell was the other one that I thought might be able to get in at left back.
Yeah.
If you want back up to Chilwell, I think he's more exciting for the future. So it'd be good to give him that squad experience. And I think he showed last season what he's capable of. I think he's a really good player. He's in better standing than Luke Shaw in the Premier League right now, I think
so.
You could say.
Well, yeah, he's playing minutes, so straight away.
Yeah, other than that, it's much of a muchness. I'd put Mings and White in there. I probably wouldn't take Cody. I definitely wouldn't take Maguire. But he will. He definitely will take Maguire.
Yeah.
So we've just got to face facts, really, I guess, and see what happens.
I think if we're one game ready before the World Cup and Maguire is still being in contention for a starting place, then he's definitely going to take him to the World Cup, isn't he? I don't think it's now the time to see him drop somebody that he's trusted so much, So yeah, I think you're right. He'll go. All these players taking up spaces that other players definitely deserve is kind of sad, really. I thought we got rid of that kind of era of picking players just on reputation or on favouritism, and form should have come so much higher up the list. And I honestly thought we were past those days, but we're not really, are we? Not with Southgate in charge.
The thing is, it's really hard to say because in tournaments, these players have never let England down.
True.
Maguire's been great for England. He was in the team of the tournament at the Euros. Luke Shaw was phenomenal.
Yeah.
But the argument of they've never let England down stops short when you look at this Nations League campaign, and England have looked bereft of any sort of quality at times. So it might be time to move on. It might just be that it's the end of a cycle for some players. There's still enough talent there to build an absolutely brilliant side around.
Yeah.
But I don't know. As long as we've got that spine sorted, I think that's all I worry about with England. Do they have a consistent spine? Because the attacking players and the flair players can interchange. I don't mind seeing Foden play one game and then Grealish play another, and then Sterling play one game and Sancho. That's fine. Change that all you need. But I don't think Southgate has worked out what he wants through the middle yet, and that worries me slightly. Other than Kane, Kane picks himself.
Yeah,
and then that's hard.
No, well, rightly so, because I think he'll have a good season. To be fair, as long as Spurs do, which they will. So, England, I feel like we're exhausting every topic now at the minute with them. But should they worry about relegation from the Nations League, apart from the obvious kind of disruption to momentum in the bigger picture and past the World Cup? Is this a big deal for them?
It's so hard to say because the Nations League presents itself an opportunity to pick up a trophy.
Yeah.
What you view that trophy as is up to you. It's a bit like the Conference League last year. No one cared about it until they were in the final, and then all of a sudden it was brilliant. And the Nations League could be that for some people. If England won the Nations League, people in this country would be absolutely buzzing about it. If they get relegated, do they care? Probably not. The biggest thing that you've got to consider, and England shouldn't be too worried about it, is how it affects things like coefficient. And if England all of a sudden become a second seed in qualifying rounds, then it gets harder. And that would be a big problem. But I think it would be a long time before that happens.
Yeah.
It's a shame because you want to be competitive in every aspect. We've cried out for ages about how boring the friendlies were. You've added something competitive, and it's kind of become just as boring in the long term, which is a shame.
Yeah.
Even the players are speaking out against it. So I'm not sure.
I think maybe it's because of the kind of season we're having and with the World Cup when it is. I think it's just made everything seem different, hasn't it? And a lot more distortion about what's priority and what's not. And the World Cup's
Yeah.
obviously the priority. So you've seen a lot of players taking it really easy as well. Nobody's
Mm.
risking anything, are they? Nobody's going in for crunchy
Including the manager.
tackles in the Nations League because it's just not important. So I kind of get it to an extent.
And maybe if they were friendlies, then Southgate would be trying
Yeah.
more, but he feels under pressure to do something. Although that worries me, because if he's trying his hardest in the Nations League and we're getting relegated with a group with Hungary in it, that's no offence to them, but really England should be absolutely toppling them.
Yeah.
England beat Germany in the Euros. Italy beat them on penalties and then failed to qualify for the World Cup. Hungary are ranked much lower than England. Realistically, you could argue that England should have won this group,
Yeah.
and they're gonna finish bottom.
Yeah, well, easily. But again, some of the international results suggest that we're not the only nation struggling. So, any
Yeah.
results take you by surprise during this wave of international games?
I think the first thing is we've spent so long talking about that game without actually talking about Italy, and it is a great win for them. And it looks like now that if they beat Hungary, they'll go into the final of the Nations League or the semi-finals, which would be great for them considering that they're not in the World Cup. That'd be something to lift the spirits. And I think the main thing that will be encouraging for them is obviously over the last few years they've really struggled to find a goal scorer. As good as Immobile is in the league, he just never seems to replicate that from the national side. Belotti's had a go, who is kind of flattered to deceive in an Italy shirt, but Raspadori has now got 4 goals for Italy, and that's a really good sign for a young player. Seeing him and Scamacca playing together again was interesting.
Yeah.
Obviously, they had their season last year and have both since departed Sassuolo, so it's good for Italy to develop those 2 young players. I think that's really encouraging. Other than that, obviously the Netherlands have done really well out of all of this. Van Dijk's header against Belgium sorts them out to top their group, but it's hard because we take so much stock in the England results because we're so close to it. But then the rest of the Nations League, you don't really know whether it's even worth looking too much into. Scotland have obviously done very well as well, which is encouraging for them right now. But
we're in that strange position where England and Wales are going to get relegated from the Nations League and Scotland take their place in the top tier, which is bizarre.
Yeah,
and the other news that really stood out for me is Olivier Giroud taking himself to within, I think, 2 goals of Thierry Henry's international goal scoring record, which is incredible.
Yeah.
And there's a really good chance he might not go to the World Cup as well. So he's got one game, I think it's against, is it Denmark, to try and claw level.
It's so tough, isn't it? Because he probably won't make the World Cup squad, you'd imagine, which is a shame actually, because he's still doing pretty well for AC Milan. He'd be a good option to take for France still, you've got to say. And with his experience and his goal scoring record, I feel like he can feel rightly aggrieved if he doesn't make the World Cup squad.
Yeah,
but
100%.
We'll see.
For me as a Man United fan, it's nice to see Diogo Dalot get 2 goals for Portugal, Bruno Fernandes to score, Cristiano Ronaldo to assist. So yeah, it was a United-centric kind of Portugal result, which was good to see.
With a very broken nose, Ronaldo as well.
Yeah, he took it.
That would look very graphic.
Yeah, there's a lot of blood on show for a while, but to be fair to him, he didn't moan an awful lot and just got on with it. So yeah despite the...
And from a United point of view as well, Malacia looked brilliant, didn't he?
Played centre-back, I think, didn't he?
Well, Van Gaal's been so interesting with it because he said he could play right back or centre back, which is really interesting. He looks brilliant. That move to Man United, it seemed like it might have come too soon, and actually he's embraced it and just gone from strength to strength. I think he looks fantastic.
On the back of your quiz with me about FIFA scores, I was having a look at United's squad on FIFA this season.
Oh, right.
Malacia is about 79, and I'm like, okay, maybe that's based on potential, but he's definitely playing better than a 79 at the minute. He looks decent.
I've literally got it downloaded in the background at the moment. I've got early access to it today, so I'm waiting for that to come through. So I'll let you know what the rest of the United squad looks like. But the funniest thing about it is we've seen that Ted Lasso and Richmond are going to be on the game.
I saw that. I've never seen Ted Lasso, but the reaction has been mixed from FIFA fans, like saying it doesn't belong in the game. It's the last FIFA of the franchise as well, isn't it? Before the rights from FIFA are actually allowed to be used. So I think it'll be one of the biggest games ever.
I feel like people think it's cool to say that Ted Lasso is rubbish. And to be honest, it is a bit rubbish. I love it. I think it's great. It's probably just feel-good TV, so it's quite funny seeing them pop up in this. And obviously the WSL's in it as well, which is really cool. It'd be nice to see that, and the promotion that's got has been really strong.
Yeah, it's nice to see a WSL star on the cover of the game as well, which is
Yeah.
Times are changing in a good way. It's good.
Yeah,
I'm
100%.
going to finish the pod this week because we've talked about international football as much as we can. Just with your hero, villain, and goal of the week, have you had much chance to see anything in the world of football other than the Nations League and internationals to kind of call upon?
Yeah, 100%. I've got my 3 ready for this week, definitely.
Awesome. Far away, mate.
Okay, so my hero of the week is from the WSL. It's Rachel Daly. It's biased, don't get me wrong, but her impact at Aston Villa has been absolutely outstanding. She's got her 3rd goal of the season already in just 2 games in. 2 wins out of 2 for Villa, and they sit 3rd in the table, which I don't think many people would have expected, particularly start in the season against City. So really impressive impact from her. She scored 1 from the spot in this game, and also just looks like she's dominating play and just commanding that team. It's brilliant to see her back in the WSL, and for Villa as well, it's been fantastic.
High hopes for Villa this season then in the WSL.
Actually, yeah, weirdly, I wasn't really sure where to see them sitting in the table at the end of the season. I think some people would have feared that it would have been the lower end, but they've started so well, and the new signings have settled in incredibly well. Rachel Daly being the main one, but Daly as well looks fantastic. So I'm excited for Villa this year. It'd be nice to try and get to a few more games and support them because it's been brilliant.
I think in line with the conversation we've just been having now about how the WSL is growing quite a lot and seeing landmark moments like FIFA taking notice of the women's game a lot more. It's going to be good for us to talk about it a bit more, I think, as well. So look out for that on the pod going forwards. But villain of the week, who have you got?
UEFA.
Okay.
Because they've given us this tournament, the Nations League, and made it impossible to watch. And I just find that bizarre. Like, if you try and get hold of highlights for anything, it's incredibly hard. We record a podcast. We want to talk about as much football as possible. I definitely don't have time to go and watch Group D games live.
No.
And even if I wanted to, I couldn't tell you how. So I just feel like you've put this big tournament out and said it's going to be exciting and replacing friendlies. And really, you can watch the England games on Channel 4 and then you're a bit stuffed for anything else. So back to FIFA in the World Cup, I suppose.
That's a fair shout, mate. UEFA have kind of missed an opportunity there to expose a few little nations that need that kind of exposure. It's almost like they've just completely disregarded the tournament themselves, which doesn't bode well when we're talking about how much it's actually worth in the first place.
Why don't you just get a deal with Amazon?
True.
Or something? Yeah. Because Amazon are desperate to get into the football industry and streaming games at the same time. You could easily get the Nations League games on there.
Can you imagine a multi-stream, pick your own game Amazon setup where you'd have all going on at the same time? You could just go, do you know what? I fancy dipping into Estonia at the minute, see how they're getting on.
Yeah.
That'd be wicked.
Well, there was talk for years, wasn't there, that the Premier League were trying to develop their own product just like that, where you could stream all of the games up from them because it would be so lucrative. But they just haven't done it. Instead, they've just sold it every year to Sky and BT. So it would be interesting to see UEFA try and do something to promote it because that's what you need.
I agree. Okay, goal of the week. What have you picked out?
Okay, I've picked a very odd one for goal of the week, to the point where I can't even tell you who scored it. I haven't got a clue with his name, but bear with me. And we'll share it on the socials, I'm sure, because it is ridiculous. I've not seen a team goal this good and this filled with skill and class for ages. Please pay attention to Santos's under-13s. Yep, that's what you heard.
How much football have you been watching, Myles?
Honestly, this is a Twitter thing, trust me. But the best team goal I've seen for a very long time. It has everything. Quick, fluid passing, a player beating about 4 defenders with a load of skill, this wonderful cutback cross, and then a lovely flick to finish it. And it's an under-13 side. It is ridiculous, but better than anything I saw from the Nations League. So we'll get it on the socials and everyone can have their own view.
If I can edit in a clip of that, I will certainly try. Thanks for watching. Please do, I say this every single week, please do hit like and subscribe. I can't really kind of underestimate how much of an impact that has on our growth. Just visibility to everybody else really makes a difference for us because we are pretty new. Myles, thank you for your time, mate. And
anytime,
good talking to you. Speak to you soon, yeah?
You too, man.
Cheers.
See you later.